Well, we got one series in the book with Don Kelly as the new manager for the Pittsburgh Pirates, and I gotta say, so far so good. Let's see how it keeps up. And what's going on, everybody? I'm Mac, coming at you Monday morning with quite a while I've done one of these, a Pirates recap, as I'm just gonna come on here and talk about this past weekend series against the Atlanta Braves. Buccos take 2 out of 3 against Atlanta. Now, I mean, this still is just a terrible season for the Pirates, 14-27 on the season, which yeah, we have the third worst record in the MLB as I'm recording this video. So obviously, just basically a season to forget. But I'm telling you right now, Don Kelly, I think this guy has shown a lot of competence in his first series as the manager of the Pittsburgh Pirates. He already did a bunch of things either better than Shelton ever could, or he did things that Shelton would never even think to do. So you take a look at Friday, for example. The Pirates won that game 3-2. A great game for Bailey Falter, in my opinion. Certainly wasn't perfect, but he definitely pitched very well on Friday, where at one point he retired 11 Braves in a row after he got off to a pretty rocky start to get things started off in the game, but settled in, was able to find his composure. He was hitting location, and he ended up going 6 scoreless innings. And as I said, 11 in a row, retired at one point for Bailey Falter. And then, of course, you got what Don Kelly did on Friday. This is the thing that really started to win me over with Don Kelly, okay? Because we all know, all right, that Tommy Pham is completely useless. Tommy Pham, do not like the guy. He's a terrible defensive player. His offense isn't much better either. Well, that's putting it politely. And he was originally in the lineup on Friday night's game. And by the way, I think Don Kelly has handled the lineup pretty well. The only time that he really changed it was on Sunday, and that was because he was pretty much forced to, because O'Neal Cruz left Saturday's game with back tightness. So he was basically forced to change the lineup right there. Other than that, if he didn't get injured, I don't think he would have changed it. So I think Don Kelly did a pretty decent job with the lineup construction, minus O'Neal Cruz, minus where Alex Canario was in the lineup, and minus Adam Frazier, basically. So there's something I liked right away with Don Kelly. His lineup construction's way better than Derek Shelton. He would have either kept the lineup the same, or he would have taken out a player on a hot streak. That's just what Derek Shelton was, all right? But getting back to what I was saying, so Tommy Pham was originally in the lineup on Friday, and right before the game, basically, late scratch puts Alex Canario in that eighth spot where Pham was supposed to be, and Alex Canario hits a solo home run to open up the scoring for not only the Bucks but the game. That's what I'm talking about right there. That shows that shows that he's competent enough to be a manager, at least for right now. Okay? Because I'm telling you, if this was Shelton, he would have kept Pham in that lineup. He would have weakened our offense, would have weakened our defense right there. But Don Kelly looks like he learned from the mistakes that Shelton made. And sure, he originally put Pham in the lineup, but you can't, you can't be too harsh on a guy that realized a mistake and he made up for it. So that's a big prop right there to Don Kelly for making that late scratch right there. Then, of course, you got Andrew McCutchen coming inches, and I mean like maybe not even inches, maybe like a centimeter away from hitting a 2-run home run, but it ended up being an RBI double to extend the lead for the Bucks. And then here's another thing here are two other things about Friday's game that I really liked that Don Kelly did, okay? So you got Shugart out on the mound in relief for Bailey Falter. Don Kelly sees that there's a matchup that's not in his favor right there, where Alex Verdugo is batting for the Braves. And what does Don Kelly do? He takes Shugart out in that inning, the same inning that he took him in, because he saw the matchup was unfavorable for him, and he puts in Caleb Ferguson. He goes with the lefty lefty matchup right there. What happens? Ferguson gets the strikeout. Would Shelton have done that? Absolutely not. You see, that's what I'm talking about. It's the basic fundamentals like that, and it's the in-game decisions that someone can do that can win me over for them, okay? And then of course you got how Derek Shelton loved David Bednar to keep him in for like a 6 out save or something. Well, Don Kelly put David Bednar out Friday night. He put him out in the eighth inning, but he saw that he was struggling and he got a lot of hard hit balls off of him in the eighth inning. Took him out in the eighth inning, let Dennis Santana come out and get the save, and Santana picks up the save. So I think in Don Kelly's debut alone, he did a lot of good things Friday night. Now, I mean, sure, Santana gave up a couple runs, but, you know, I think Don Kelly did, like I said, he did a lot of good things right on Friday night. 1-0 as a manager right there. And for the record, Shelton had been the manager for 5 years, never had a career record above 500. That's something Don Kelly did in one attempt. So there's Friday's game right there. Great debut for Don Kelly, in my opinion. Saturday, it was not a good game for the team. But again, Don Kelly, I think he did some other good things right on Saturday. You know, getting really worried about Brian Reynolds for to start the things off. I mean, I know that once the calendar hits the month of June, Brian Reynolds is a completely different ball player, but we can't keep riding off of that forever. I want to see Reynolds be more consistent. And you saw it with the start of Saturday's game where Reynolds was getting picked on. He had a couple of misplays, struggled to find decent contact, couldn't get a hit. I mean, the guy's been struggling to swing the bat, and he's been struggling to find a base hit lately. So that was very much exploited in Saturday's game. But then you had Don Kelly challenging a ruling at first base that ended up being a double play because it looked like the runner was barely off of first base as the relay to first base came in. Looked like the throw barely beat the runner. Don Kelly challenged it. Challenges it. It gets overturned. There you go, right there with Don Kelly. Now, granted, it was early in the game and it didn't really have much of an impact after the game, after the fact, because the Bucks lost. But you know, when you see something like that that doesn't really go in your favor and you have a gut feeling like that, you got to trust it every single time right there. And that's something that Don Kelly went with as he got the challenge and he won it. So there you go right there. Other than that, it was worth a challenge right there in my opinion. Also, Don Kelly got ejected from Saturday. So yeah, welcome to the big leagues. Welcome to the manager life, Donnie. You get ejected in your second game as manager, but that's called being a manager right there. He's sticking up for his team right there. He's putting his nose out right there. He has a lot of questionable calls that didn't go his way. He finally decided that he had it with those umps. He decided to give it a piece of his mind, and he got ejected from the game. So can't really say too much about Saturday. Bucks lost that game. They tried to make it back. A disgusting throwing error on a pitch that cost us the game. 2 for 17 with runners in scoring position as well. Not a good game Saturday at all. And then you got yesterday's game where Don Kelly improved to 2-1 as a manager, 2-0 in the games where he fully managed the team. So to start things off, you had Carmen Majinski going out there, and I wish that we would just call it Bubba Chandler already, man. Either him or Mike Burrows. I want to see one of those two get called up right now because Majinski is not a starter. He's a bullpen guy, but to his credit, he did okay Sunday. Nothing amazing, nothing extraordinary, but nothing bad either. I mean, he went 5 2/3 a shutout ball. He pitched a very nice game, but it's only a matter of time before Majinski either goes back to the bullpen or he gets sent down. I'm personally leaning toward he goes to the bullpen. But yeah, bottom line, we need Bubba Chandler or Mike Burrows up here real badly, man, because it's showing. And I feel like once Jared Jones recovers from his injury and he's eligible to play again, that's going to really help out the rotation too. So there you go with Carmen Majinski alone right there. But you got to give him credit. He went 5 2/3 shutout ball. Very nice game for him. And then two things that really won me with Don Kelly in Sunday's rubber match against the Atlanta Braves. He called for double steals twice in the game against Atlanta on Sunday. He called for a double steal to set up the scoring that led to a sacrifice fly, and it put the Bucks on the board. Got two more runs after that to make it 3-0. And then in the bottom of the ninth, with the game tied at 3, Kelly again calls for a double steal, allows the runners to advance. Joey Bart gets the walk-off RBI on a throwing error, but you know what? I don't feel bad for it. We always have throwing errors go not in our favor like that. We always lose games by throwing errors, it seems like nowadays. So to have another team lose a game to us because of a throwing error they committed, I'm not complaining about that one bit. But yeah, he's showing aggression right there with calling again for double steals right there to advance the runners. And I feel like even if it wasn't a throwing error or if he did make the play on it, it would have been the walk-off anyway because of Don Kelly calling for it right there. So all in all, Buccos take the series against Atlanta, a very surprising, struggling Braves team to start off the season, no less. And yeah, I think Don Kelly had a really good first series as a manager, resulted in a series win. He took care of business against a good Atlanta team, in my opinion. They struggled real heavily to start off the season, but I still think this Braves team is really good. But now you get into a really tough test coming up because this week the Bucks are in Queens to take on the Mets, who have the best record in the National League, if not the second best record. I know that they've been playing great baseball this year, and they were the best team in baseball at one point. But you're taking on a really good Mets team right now. Then you're taking on your in-state rivals, the Philadelphia Phillies. Okay, so yeah, you got two really tough series coming up. Then I believe you play the Padres again, and then you got to play the Cubs again. So really, when you think about it, you got 4 really tough series coming up, but this was a series that you needed to state your case on, saying that, yes, I am competent with being a manager of this team. I know what I'm doing out there. I can work with these guys. I can find ways to win games. I show passion. I show that the team, I'm going to whip these guys into shape. That's what Don Kelly did. He came out in his debut, talked about how much he loved the franchise, how much of an honor it was for him to be, to be promoted to manager. The guy is a Pittsburgh native himself. I believe he grew up in the Mars area. So, yeah, Don Kelly is one of us. Don Kelly knows what it means to manage for this franchise, and he knows he knows what it means to manage in a city like Pittsburgh, a tough blue-collar city like Pittsburgh, So, if there's anyone who gets it, it's him. And I think that showed a lot in his debut series, and especially his debut game. He did a lot of good things out there. As for the team, they looked and sounded completely different. Like, this was not the team that had bad body language, that had no sense of urgency on the field, had no baseball IQ, and didn't look like what they were doing. This looked like an entirely different team, to where they played aggressive. They played like they knew what they were doing. They knew they had some kind of idea what they were doing. And they did not give up the entire way. They made mistakes, sure, but they still battled to the very end, and they wanted to go out there and win for their new manager. Whereas if Shelton was still here, they would have had poor body language. They would have just kind of gone through the motions. They wouldn't have tried at all. And, I can't really call it hitting the reset button because you still got Charrington here. You still got most of the coaching staff here. Radley Hand is gone too, by the way, our strategy coordinator. That was another guy I wanted gone was Radley Hand because what kind of strategy was that guy throwing out there every single game? But you get it. Sometimes that's what a new manager can do. It can bring new life into a team. It can bring a new attitude into a team. And I feel like the Bucks had a great attitude this weekend against the Atlanta Braves. Like I said, I'm starting to get a sense that they're just not going to lie down and die anymore, that they're just going to go out there and try. Are they going to have terrible games here and there? Yes, of course they do. Every team goes through it. But I feel like more often than not, this team is going to at least try now. So we'll see how it goes from there. Like I said, you got 4 really tough series coming up, and it's going to be a big stretch here for Don Kelly. So let's see what we can do here. Once again, I can't really say it's hitting the reset because you still got Ben Cherington here, but it's a nice refresh with the team. A nice refresh. Now let's carry that momentum to New York, see what they can do against the Mets, see what they can do against the Phillies, and we'll go from there. But yeah, that's my recap of this series. Feel like there was a lot of good things that went right for us in this series. And we'll go from there. And I will see you in the next one. Let me know what you think down below.